Hello everybody, and welcome back to Instant Release. Today we're doing the $1,500 full camera kit. So before we talk about the actual things that are in that kit, I want to talk about the other options that I've been thinking about for the last few months that I thought I would put in that video, but in the end I realized that wasn't really the move, right? So generally when you think about $1,500 full camera kit, you don't think about full frame cameras, you think about crop sensor cameras and more specifically like macro four thirds, APS-C and all of that. And the thing with that $1,500 budget is that this is what I went towards initially. Like I wanted to include something like a Fujifilm X-H1 or an X-T3 or a G9 or something like that. And the result is that these cameras are good cameras when it comes to value, but they are not great cameras when it comes to making a kit because the lenses are expensive, at least on the Fujifilm part of things. Pretty much all lenses are high-end lenses and they are very expensive for what they are, and I mean in my opinion, of course. And on the macro four thirds side of things, you have a lot of very good budget lenses, but I think they are more, at home in a like 1,000 budget kit, not really a $1,500 budget, because if you do go with a $1,500 budget, you end up with a kit that has a tremendous amount of small budget lenses, which are not what I would get, maybe I would get one or two high-end lenses, but that's not covering everything, and if you want to cover everything, you need to reduce your budget for one specific lens, and it was too complicated is what I want to say. You can definitely go for those cameras, and they are great cameras for the price, but in the end I decided to go for the camera that I've been using for the last year and a half, and that's the camera that is filming me right now, which is my Nikon Z6. Now, this camera is not the absolute best camera there is by any means, but the thing is, this camera, ever since I made my review of it, it's a camera that has seen its price continuously drop. And like when I'm saying this, it's like when I bought it, it was about $700, and if you wanted to get it on websites like MPB, you could get away with like 800, 850, and I thought it was a decent amount of money and a decent price for that kind of camera. However, those cameras have been like dropping so far that recently, if you go right now on MPB Europe, there is like 5 Z6s under $600, which is absolutely crazy. There was one on the website last week, which was like 519 euros, which is absolutely crazy value when you think about it. So if you want to know more about the Z6's spec specifically, go watch my review that I made, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, like in June last year. It's a video in which I went in a lot of detail about what the Z6 is able to do and the specs and everything. And honestly, I wanted to make a long-term review, but my opinion about the Z6 hasn't really changed, so I thought it wasn't really worth making. And the nice thing about the Nikon Z6 specifically is that if you want to get affordable, good lenses, there are affordable, good lenses on the Z mount, which to me made it a prime example of a good camera to fit into $1,500 budget. So I'm not going to go into too much details about why I chose the Z6. Let's just go straight into what I'm including in this kit. So the Z6, as I said, 24 megapixel full frame camera, up to 12 frames per second, can shoot 4K 30 with a 8-bit, can shoot 4K 30 in 10-bit externally with a recorder, can even shoot 4K 30 12-bit RAW video if you have the firmware upgrade. Anyway, the thing with the Z6 really is the fact that it's a camera that has a lot of potential, and it's a camera that has great performance, in my opinion, when it comes to autofocus, burst rate, and the image quality is absolutely superb on that camera. So that's a great base, for someone that is starting out, that just wants to have a quality camera that would keep for years. I think there is no other camera in the market today for the price. You could go for a crop sensor like an EM1 Mark II or a G9, which are absolutely great cameras, but the thing is, I know I have been canceling people for like years at this point when it comes to camera purchases and camera decisions, and I know that people have some opinions about crop sensors, and when it comes to Macro Four Thirds sensors specifically, they are absolutely fine. So when it comes to the format and the image quality and all of that, but people tend to have a bit of a gear acquisition syndrome. They watch YouTube videos saying that Macro Four Thirds is dead, and the one thing that I've seen Macro Four Thirds user people do is that they look for full frame replacement of their cameras within a year or 2 years. So I think going for full frame from a get-go is going to be actually a benefit because they will not have to go through that gear acquisition syndrome phase at all because they already have the full frame camera. And if the full frame camera is actually good, that's all the better. Okay, so the Z6, let's say you are able to get the Z6 for about 600 bucks. Now you need to have some accessories for it. So, by the way, I'm taking the, last time we did the 500 bucks kit, I did not include video at all because the D300 could not do video, but since the Z6 can do video and actually pretty well, I am going to include some video accessories. The first one being something like this. This is a Rode Video Macro. It costs about 50 bucks brand new, but you can get it used on websites like MPBM. I know I'm using MPB a lot, but just bear with me. That's maybe the biggest gear platform and the simplest gear platform to use in Europe, so I'm using it a lot. I know I'm not affiliated with MPB in any way, by the way, but the Rode Video Macro, you can get it used on MPB for like 20 bucks. So to me, that's an absolutely great deal because it delivers decent sound. The preamps in Z6 are decently versatile when it comes to adapting like those microphones, so it works fine. It's been my main video setup for about a year now, so I would recommend you get an external microphone like this. I'm gonna bear with me. The second thing I would highly suggest you do is you get spare batteries. So the Z6 uses those guys, which are ENEL15Bs. Why the Bs and not the Cs? The Cs technically are better, but the Cs are much more expensive, and they allow for USB-C power delivery, so basically powering the camera through USB-C while charging the battery while you are using the camera. The NEL15B are not compatible with that. They allow USB-C charging, but not USB-C power delivery to the camera. And that's nice because the Z6 is not compatible with that either, meaning that you are basically getting the same thing if you get an ENEL15B or an ENEL15C. And considering the ENEL15B is about half the cost of an ENEL15C, this is where I would recommend you to go, meaning that for the price of one ENEL15C as a spare battery, you can get two ENEL15Bs, and this is the way I would go for sure, because 3 batteries is always better than 2. So if you get 2 spare batteries, which I would recommend, you are adding about, what, 15 bucks to your budget? So that's alright, I think, for like battery and all of that. Now when it comes to the cards, that's the pain point with the Z6 because it uses CF Express Type B or XQD cards. I would recommend that you get a brand new CF Express Type B, at least one. That's what I did. You can get one that is decent when it comes to performance and reliability for about 80 bucks. That's what I paid for mine. But I would also recommend that if you want more cards, you look for used XQD cards because they can get really cheap. Something like this Sony 32GB XQD card, you can get it for like 20 bucks and it is absolutely worth it. Now, the problem with that is that you have 2 cards using the same format but not the same protocols for reading them. And so if you want to have a card reader, you will probably need to have a card reader for XQD and CF Express Type B, unless you do the smart thing and get something like this. This is a Sony Armor WG1. Sorry for the hit on mic. This is probably one of the only, if not the only, I don't know if there is any other one, one of the only card readers that can read both XQD and CF Express Type B. I do not recommend you get it brand new, however, because brand new, this is like 120, 150 bucks, depending on where you buy it. I do recommend that you try to find one used. I bought this one on MPB, again, for about 50 bucks, and for 50 bucks I think it's absolutely worth it. So let's say that you get this card reader and a brand new card. and you keep an eye out for a cheap XQD in the future. That's about $80 for the CF Express Type B card and about $50 for that one, so 130 for cards and card readers. So that's about everything I wanted to say for the camera accessory. Now let's talk about the lenses. I'm not going to be able to show them to you in this video. There's going to be B-roll, hopefully, but I'm going to go for a 3 lens kit, and all of them are going to be prime lenses. So I want that kit to be decently versatile. So we need a wide angle, a normal lens, and a small telephoto. That way we will be able to do landscapes, portraits, street photography, photojournalism, travel photography, whatever you name it. So when it comes to the wide angle, that's one of the lenses I can show you. I'm going for the 28mm f2.8 from Nikon. It is plasticky, it is cheap, at about $200 used, but it's optically good. It's not like S lens level of optical performance, but it does the job pretty well. Wide open, it's pretty good, but it sharpens up nicely when you stop it down to like f4. And for landscapes, I think it's a very good lens. 28mm is to me about as wide as I would go, but that's a personal preference. And for the price, I think this is an amazing lens because it's weather sealed. For those that don't think that the plastic ring in the back would be weather sealed, I actually did the test. At my work, I have an IPX2 test bench to test for the water dripping and all of that, and I put my camera with that lens in the bench for an hour, and no water got through because of the ruggous part in the middle of the ring, which catches water, and the fact that it's overextending over the mount a little bit, so it actually creates a nice seal against water, and the front and the focus ring are actually weather sealed according to Nikon's own website. So the lens is decently weather sealed, and I would be okay using that lens in the rain. So that's our wide angle. Now for the normal lens, normally I would recommend you go for a 35 and a 50, but Nikon has a nice lens which is in the middle of that, and that's the 40mm f2, which is filming me right now. This lens is basically identical to the 28 when it comes to build quality, so you have the same kind of weather sealing in the front and around the focus ring. You have the same mount, which is repellent to water, which is pretty good. And you have the same kind of optical performance, meaning that you have a nice lens with good character, wide open, but when you close it up a little bit, it sharpens up extremely nicely at about f3.2, f3.5, it's extremely sharp in my opinion, and by the time you reach f4, it's basically identical when it comes to critical sharpness to something like a 50mm f1.8s, which is almost perfect optically. So this is a no-brainer, like those two lenses are no-brainer lenses to me. They are good, they are cheap, they are weather sealed, and they are small. And this is something that is pretty important to me if you want to do street photography, because the Z6 is not especially a small camera, it's not especially big either, but I think having a small package is important if you want to travel and not being, you know, impeded in your movement, if that makes sense. So having a small lens and a decently small camera is important, and these lenses are fitting the bill pretty well. Now for the small telephoto, initially what I wanted to do, what I would consider to be the best option, do I have it right here? Yeah. My initial idea of, so that's what I was talking about in my Z6 review about 6 months ago, is that the best value for money with the Z6 is to use it with f-mount glass. And for the short telephoto options, so far my choice was to get an FTZ adapter and an 85mm f1.8G lens. The problem with that is that the FTZ is about $200, and the 85mm is about $200 as well. And that means that we are not using the FTZ, we cannot share the cost of the FTZ with all of the other lenses here, meaning that it's effectively a $400 lens. And for $400 you can get something way better, but for $400 we're also way past our budget by about $200, so it was out of the question. Fortunately, there have been some nice releases when it comes to short telephoto lenses on Nikon Z mount, and one of them is this one. This is the TD Artisan 75mm f2. This lens I've had for about 4 weeks now, and I'm really in love with that lens for several reasons. First of all, well, it's a pretty brand new lens, like it came out like 5-6 months ago, I think. So if you might be in trouble if you want to get it used. I got it used on MPB for about 144 bucks, give or take, 140 let's say. And for that price, it's no brainer for me. But if you want to get it, if you aren't able to get it brand new, you can get it from TT Artisan's website, brand new. If you aren't able to get it used, that's what I wanted to say. You can get it brand new from TT Artisan's website for 200 bucks, which to me is still a very good price for a lens like this. And let me explain. It's a lens that is completely metal. It has an aperturing, which I like, and optically it's extremely sharp and it's almost completely devoid of chromatic aberrations, which is what I was looking for. That's the main problem that I have with my 85mm, which I still love, by the way. That lens is extremely sharp and it focuses accurately. However, there is chromatic aberrations everywhere you look. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass to fix in post, and it is not a problem that I have with my 75 f2, which I can use wide open whenever I want because I know the chromatic aberrations are well controlled. The only problems that this lens has is that, well, compared to the 28 and the 40, it's not weather sealed in any way. And the focusing is not the fastest. It's way slower than the 40mm for sure. So for video, it's going to be something to keep in mind. For moving subjects, it's also going to be something to keep in mind in photo mode. And the last thing is that it flares pretty easily, and the flare is very distracting. Technically, I am using the flare creatively sometimes, and I like the look of it, but it can be annoying, and for someone that just wants to have a good lens with no flaring, it can be a bit of a pain in the butt. It has a lens hood, which doesn't do a whole lot in my experience. It's not like the lens is magically going to improve a ton, but you know, that's something to keep in mind. I think for the price, it's a no-brainer for the Nikon Z cameras. If you are on a budget, you want a small telephoto, this 75mm f2 is absolutely amazing. So if we are looking at the lenses right now, I would say that we have about 600 bucks. Let's say that worst case scenario, you aren't able to find a TT Artisan 75mm f2 used, so you buy it brand new, and you can get the other two lenses, like the 40 and the 28, for about 200 bucks each. We are at about 600 bucks for 3 lenses, which in my opinion is pretty good. That said, if you want to have a zoom, and I know that a lot of people prefer zooms to primes, personally I prefer primes to zooms, but that's just purely personal, you can still get a good zoom in that system, and what I would recommend you to do is to look for a Nikon 24-70mm f4S. This is an incredible lens. It's one that, even though I don't like zooms, it's one that I've been considering getting, and I will probably get at some point. It's wider than the 28. It goes almost to the same focal length as this, so it's basically, that's 70, 75, basically the same thing. The only problem with that lens is it's an f4. But it's an f4 throughout the zoom range. That's pretty good, I guess. But optically, it's an amazing lens. It's super sharp. It's basically professional quality. It's an S lens, so I guess that makes sense. It's weather sealed. It's very well built, quite heavy but small. It's a good lens overall. I like it. But that lens, you can get it for between 350 and 400 bucks if you look on MPB or in your local used market. That leaves us about 200 bucks budget for another lens, and this is where I would get the prime. This is where I would get either the 40 f2 or the 75 f2 to have that biggest difference with the zoom. If you get the 28, the 28mm f2.8 compared to 24mm f4, it's not going to have a huge difference. If you get it if you like wide angle and you want to have a small lens, that's absolutely viable and fair. But in my opinion, if you want to have the biggest difference with your zoom and have the most amount of purpose, the 40 f2 and the 75 f2 having that 2 stops difference with the f4, zoom lens is going to provide you some more opportunities for shallow depth of field, low light performance, and all of that. So this is what I would do if I wanted to go with a zoom. Of course, we can mention the 24-50, which is a good lens as well, and about $200 as well, like sometimes under $200, maybe 180. It's a good lens, but it's a very tight aperture at 50mm. It's f6.3 something, which is not excellent. I think it's a good lens. It's sharp overall. It's a good option if you want to have a, like, if you don't want to get the 28mm f2.8 and you want to replace it with a more versatile zoom, get the 24-50. That's a viable option, and then you can get the 40 and the 75. That's another possible kit. Okay, I talked a little bit about how the Z6 would be able to do video, so we need to include some video accessories for the lenses, and we have 40mm and 28mm, which are good lenses for video. I think the angle of view is perfect for video, and both of them have a 52mm filter thread. So what you can do is get a 52mm viable ND filter for those. They are going to be useful in outside, like if you want to shoot outside some videos, some vlogging or whatever. This is going to be a helpful, and a viable ND of decent quality in 52mm filter thread is going to be about $30. What you can also do, considering the 75mm f2 has a 62mm filter thread, and maybe you want to be able to use that lens for video as well, you can get a 62mm viable ND and then a 52-62 step-up ring, which is going to be about $10. I don't think the price of a 62-52 is going to change that much. Generally, they are about the same pricing. So I think like the only difference is that you're going to pay maybe $10 for a step-up ring, and that's about it. Actually, that's the whole kit. There is a camera, 3 lenses, a microphone, a viable ND filter. Maybe there's some budget left. I'm gonna show everything here, and maybe you can fit a circular polarizer filter, and that's about it. That's the whole kit. So if you have any other questions about it, feel free to ask them down below. I'll work on the 1000 budget kit that will release maybe in a few months. I'm thinking about Micro Four Thirds for that one because, as I said in the beginning of this video, the lenses for Micro Four Thirds are really nice for like very budget kits because they have very nice low budget options. So I think it makes more sense. And in the meantime, thank you for watching. See you in the next one, and take care.